Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I'm joined by Matt Hampton. He's the founder of Headshop and the director of client engagement over at Envoy. So welcome to the show, Matt. I'm really excited to talk to you about your journey because you've been at this entrepreneurial game for almost 3 decades now. Is that fair to say?
A little bit less, but yeah, it's been a bit, about 20, 25 years. Yeah, getting there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great.
Yeah, and so the first question I want to ask you, with all this experience that you have in entrepreneurship, what do you think are the 3 things that every entrepreneur needs to know?
It's funny. I knew ahead of time you were going to ask me that question, and I still couldn't come up with a good answer. But no, the first one for sure is I think know your own risk tolerance. I think I see a lot of people that just don't understand. I mean, they on paper they know what risk is and what they're going to do and what they won't do. But I don't think anyone really knows their own limits.
Yeah.
And I think properly defining that with yourself is probably better done ahead of time than as you're taking off, especially with one of my businesses that we'll get into a little bit today. But I mean, risk tolerance in that business in Headshop is pretty much everything, right? I mean, it kind of begins and ends there. Another thing I think is you and I touched on this a little bit, but spotting opportunity, right? Being able to sort of look around and realize what is an opportunity, what is not, what is just a distraction, what is just fun to do for the night. These are all valid ideas, but not all of them are serving your entrepreneurial needs necessarily. So
yeah.
And one that I really try really hard to remember, and I got to be full disclosure here, I'm really awful at this, but just having fun with what you're doing. Like you got into this for a reason. And I feel like when fun becomes work, which companies are work, right? It doesn't matter if you like it or not, but it's still work, right? Keep remembering to sort of lean in on the stuff that brought you to that party in the first place, I think is real hard to keep in focus, especially, if you had an entertainment business in COVID, probably a little hard to keep your eye on the fun part because that's not super fun. Right.
Yeah, it definitely is difficult, right? And if you can have the fun within the business, man, it makes it just a much more enjoyable experience for everybody as well. Because that's one of the things that I know I struggle with a little bit too, because I get sometimes distracted by the seriousness of running the business. And so the rest of the team, I can see it in them, if I'm in that headspace too long. The morale starts to take a little bit of a dip as well, right? And so you kind of
it'd be hard to imagine not, right? I mean,
yeah.
And I feel like that is an inevitable consequence of being a human being, right? Like you kind of rise or fall to the company you're with, so if you're not on your game, then it's a tough ask to look around and say, hey, Bob, can you be a better worker right now, even though I'm just useless, like that's, it's tough. It's definitely tough. So
yeah, totally. I think that's a really great observation. Now, for today, we're going to be talking a lot about your one venture, Headshop, because there's a lot of interesting things that have been going on over there, from what I understand. And so, I'd like to have you maybe just explain to our audience what your business is, and then also what inspired you to start it.
Sure. I was once a college student, and college students do what college students do. I know you're in Canada. First of all, can I ask a question? Do you guys even call them head shops in Canada? I'm not even sure.
No. Well, I don't know. I haven't really heard that terminology that much.
So like a store that you would go buy like a pipe or a bong, like what would you guys call that?
That's a good question.
Like, is there a universal name for that in Canada? I don't know.
I don't really know if there is. I mean, that's not my market, so I don't. Yeah.
No, that's So in America, that and we now are shipping all over the world. So this is an issue, an interesting observation about the name in the United States anyway. is instantaneously identifiable, right? Like
Okay.
anybody over the age of 35 knows what a head shop is, right? And they know it right away. And you could be a nun, a school teacher, an accountant, a stoner, a musician. It doesn't matter who you are. You know what a head shop is. It's very,
Okay.
now culturally that's shifted a little bit. 20-year-olds, it's hit or miss, right? It's not always a foregone conclusion because, digital head shops are not always called headshop.com because we own that one. So we are called headshop.com, but obviously we're the only one. And so you get people making cute names, this or that. And so the younger generations, as the digital footprint started to expand and sort of really encroach on that brick and mortar head shop space, which has been like this for back to the 70s, really, here in the US. The blacklight posters on the wall, the velvet posters, and the lava lamps, and all the visual cacophony. You walk into a head shop and it smells like a head shop, right? It's got this like incense, sort of like nondescript smell that you can't really put your finger on, but it just smells collectively like a head shop, right? You're like, oh yeah, because they sell 50 different kinds of incense and flavored rolling papers and, this and that and the other. And so there's like this sort of, you walk in and you don't really know what to make of it all, right? Like you've got visual stuff everywhere, smells are happening everywhere. There's usually crazy music being played. And you don't have any of that experience online. And so, you got people that don't necessarily know what it is, but like immediately really figure it out. But you got other countries like Canada where that term doesn't exist. It's not a thing, right? So as marketers, which is essentially what we are basically, it's an opportunity as well as a challenge, because on the one side, a lot of the intrinsic value in the domain itself was in this sort of cultural anchor that it had, right? And everybody knew what that word meant. But as it internationalizes and comes down in the age bracket, like that's a huge opportunity, because we can now reinvent that word and we can make it kind of mean whatever we want it to mean. And what we've decided to do is sort of lean in on that and say, best case scenario, what would a head shop be if we ran the world? Like, if we were king of the universe, what would we make a head shop? And that's been a very fun journey, because we are quite literally making that happen now.
Interesting. Yeah. And so that opportunity you're saying has come about because of the international push that you have, where the name isn't synonymous with the physical location. So
correct.
Yeah.
And it's again, that age thing I think is also playing into it as well, right? Like, 19-year-olds. If you're going to college tomorrow, you may or may not, you're probably 50-50 if you even know what that word means.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, obviously it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at the website in 2 seconds, what we sell and what you could probably find there. So it's a mystery that solves itself rather quickly, but but nonetheless, right.
Yeah. So now you've been at this game for around 20 years then, right?
Yep. Yeah. We actually, our founding date was 20 years ago this year. So
yeah, well, that's exciting. And so through that time, I mean, lots have changed. So walk me through this evolution then, because prior to just recently, it sounds like you were really leaning into the head shop that everybody would understand what it is. And so tell me how that now informs your marketing, your messaging, and everything else, because you're doing this shift.
We had this whole business plan, right? And I guess this is where you look into opportunities, right? Like the theme that you might extract from me here in this interview is this opportunity, because here we started out with a business plan that said we're going to sell bongs and pipes and rolling papers. We're going to be like this online headshop.com. We're going to be this kingpin of head shops. We sign the contract, we take control of the domain, the ink's not even dry, we're waving it in the air, and all of a sudden Pipe Dream comes and everyone goes to jail. We're like, shit. And listen, timing is everything. And had that happened a month, maybe 2 earlier, I never would have bought this domain.
Yeah.
Like 100%, never would have happened. We paid a fortune for it. And it was a big lift for us financially at the time. It was a big lift. We owned a fledgling web development company at the time. We were only 4 or 5 years old at the time, right? And it was like very, very difficult to do both. Luckily, I had partners and we can kind of divide and conquer. But I mean, we were staying late after work and packing boxes and like ourselves. Like, so our office, web design office, was in our warehouse essentially. And so it was a lot of work getting this thing going, right? And so I don't know if I would have wanted to do all that work if I had known that we weren't going to make a splash in the way we thought we'd make a splash. But instead, we got an even better opportunity that I never even saw coming, which we affectionately referred to as a dorm accoutrement site. So we sold tapestries and scented candles and patchouli oil and incense. And we did have rolling papers and blunt wraps, which are like the cigar wrap without the tobacco in there, right? And they're in every flavor imaginable. And we had grinders and we had some like cannabis accessory light stuff. It wasn't really diving in. We didn't sell bongs or pipes or anything like that. Like it was sort of like dancing around the topic, but not actually addressing it. Right. And we had a really good run doing that. Like it was weirdly successful. Like, and it was not what we set out to do, but given the fact that at the time that the options were eat a giant financial investment and do nothing with this, or give it the college try, right? I mean, we had to do something. I mean, so and luckily I was young and dumb enough, naive enough to just be like, hey, this seems like as good as any. But I mean, with hindsight, it was an awesome opportunity. And I don't know that we were as confident about that, but like from a risk management standpoint, like we were kind of in that stage of life where you're thinking about having kids, but we hadn't yet had kids. And so like, I didn't want to go to jail for something as stupid as this, right? Like, I mean, so, we were very strategic about, we had that candid conversation with ourselves and said, really, what is it? Because we had competitors that were just like doubling down. They're like, you know what? Lightning's not going to strike twice. They're not going to come back in and clean it out. Now, those guys were right. They never came back and did another sweep like that. But you got to put yourself in the time and place of the day. There was no way I was making that gamble. Like none.
No, that's pretty legit fear there. And so did you just park the domain for a while?
No, we went headstrong into dorm gear. Like we sold 100 tapestries a week. It was like, I mean, it was great. I mean, we were in a completely different business than we thought we'd be in, but it was a business, right? And then as we got a little further down the road, that got tumultuous. Then you started getting into merchant processors stopped supporting Headshops. And so that took us out of commission, for a couple of years. Actually, that was a big problem. We'd go up, we'd go down. We couldn't take orders. We could take orders. It was, it was a bit of a madness there. That pressure drove away some of the original members of the team and one of the owners at the time. And so at the end of the day, I kind of took it on myself because, again, I had that conversation with myself and said, look, this is long-term. This is going to be the right idea to do. Might not be today, but this is the right idea. And I have firmly believed that really since day one. But when I became the sole owner of Headshop, it was very crystal clear in my mind that this is a good investment long-term.
Yeah.
And just to cap that off, like what got us into it, it was the fact that I loved in college going when school started and getting a new bong for the school year, right? Like, I mean, that it was like a field trip, it was 45 minutes away. We'd go and, you spend 2 hours in there just playing with all the stuff and just soaking it in, talking to the person behind the counter. It was a social experience, it was, and I wanted to do that for other people. I wanted to be a part of that journey. So.
Yeah, which is really interesting, actually, that you mentioned that, because I mean, one of the things that we as marketers, and you have a marketing company as well, and so you get this, is it's how do you replicate some of that experience within the digital world? And so I'm curious to know how you're able to, I guess, bring that, community, build that community and that experience, and people being part of that, Headshop tribe that
Sure.
you're trying to build. Yeah. What have you done that's been really great there? And maybe what do you wish you could have done sooner that you would have built that even better?
Well, what I wish we could have done sooner is what we're in progress on right now, actually, which is really tapping the vein of the lifestyle of Headshop rather than the product, the individual products of Headshop, right?
Yeah.
The original business plan, we basically said, take a bag of weed and throw it in the middle of a room. And this is what brought everybody to the room, but it's not what defines everybody in this room. In fact, some people are occasional connoisseurs of cannabis. Some people almost never. Some people are 5 times a day, right? Like it spans, right? But there's this common thread that brings people to the table. And then the other side of my brain, as you said, is a marketer. So when I looked at the opportunity to buy headshop.com, I mean, this is a marketer's wet dream, right? Like you're like, oh my God, this is like the most marketable. It's like if you had a dream to sell fish tanks and somebody said, hey, do you want to buy fishtank.com? You'd be like, absolutely. Yes. Give me, I'm going to trip over people to buy this. Right. Like, and that's kind of what we felt like. It was one of these rare opportunities that just came out of nowhere. It was actually my roommate from college's older brother who owned it. And he was like, I'm not going to do anything with this, because he had the conversation with himself and he was like, I have no appetite to take this on. I don't, not in it for me. Right. And so I gladly did it. We paid off the domain in a couple months, I think. Not long. It ended up being far less tragic than I thought. And, and the rest, as they say, is history. But what we're doing now is we're grown up enough where we know what else would connect people, for lack of a better word, right? Like we didn't have a clear picture of that. It took years to craft that picture. But one of the things that we just launched recently is a functional, like a wellness section. And one of the products that leads that charge is these functional mushroom drops. It's like tinctures that, of lion's mane or cordyceps or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge interest in that because as it turns out, people who are respectful of cannabis are also likely to be connoisseurs of their own health. And so they tend to be organic eaters, or at least clean eaters, right? Like they tend to like, improvisational type music, right? Like Fish and Grateful Dead. I mean, you've heard those are the big ones, but like, Billy Strings or, String Cheeses. And I mean, there's a bunch of other bands out there that kind of do this. And we can just keep following the bouncing ball, right? Like this keeps going to many little areas. So we've got partnerships in the works right now with ticket brokers. We've got partnerships in the works right now with concert promoters themselves, where we can be a part of the tour itself. These are things that I would have only had in a dream bucket when I started, because we didn't have the resources or the time or even the foresight to really know how to put those pieces in play. Right. And now we do. And so that answer is pretty easy, man. If I had all the experience I have right now and I could transplant it back then, I would do this in a heartbeat, because nobody's doing it now, but nobody was even thinking about it then. Right. Like I mean, you talk about building the $100 million brand like that. I mean, that would have been that back then. Right. I mean, and listen, it's a fun space to be in. So, our little cute tagline is connecting cool products to cool people. And that is kind of how we think about it in the morning when we wake up, right? Like today I'm going to put really cool stuff in the hands of really cool people. And That's all. That's like it's a very simple mission statement, right? But at the same time, it's harder to do than you think.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's talk to me a little bit about that, the difficulty around, I think, the pivot into much more of a lifestyle brand than just a product brand.
Well, there's only so much gas in the tank when you deal with products in a very strictly defined sense, right? Like you can only go so far selling bongs, right? And even if you want to just get to something a little less like me, I mean, fish tanks, we just were talking about that as a generic example, but like if you only sold fish tanks and ignored all the whimsy and allure and passion about fish species and salt versus freshwater and like all the nuance of a fish owner, then you're really not invested in fish tanks, right? Like any idiot can sell a fish tank. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to do that, right?
Yeah.
And Headshop is no different, right? Like anybody could go to an Indian distribution company or a Chinese distribution company and buy 3 boxes of really crappy made production glass and sell them to college kids for $20, right? And you could make 50%, 60% margin on that, right? Like, I mean, this is bottom of the barrel, shittiest built products you could imagine. And they're at every smoke shop that I've ever been to on the entire planet, right? Like but that's myopically focused on product. It doesn't talk to lifestyle. It doesn't talk to what this person likes when they leave the store. I mean, so when you start cracking that nut, it's a wildly diverse tapestry of interests, of opportunities. And when you take yourself out of just pigeonholing yourself, and we see this all the time, man, most of our competitors, if not all of them, if they could sell more vaporizers to kids in college and high school to just take their little 5-10 thread oil pens into class with them, they would do it. I mean, there's a reason why one of the most popular products out there is the disposable vape battery. It's because they're catering to literally the lowest common denominator, right? And I'm not saying that those aren't valuable customers. They certainly are, but those customers are going to have a very small window of opportunity where they are that focused on that product. Eventually they're going to grow up and they're not going to be that person anymore. And how do you talk to that? How do you continue that conversation when they're not just, vaping in a college class, right? Like, and that's
exactly. Yeah.
And quite frankly, to me, the cannabis only products are some of the least interesting stories, right? Because they're predictable, right? I mean, listen, our core business is cannabis accessories. Like for the time being, that is who we are. It's what it is by volume, most of what we have. So I don't want to say that there's something wrong with that, but like, as we start to peel this proverbial onion, we're realizing that these other, like the N of one health, for example, right? This idea of self-experimentation, this is a $1 billion industry more, right? And like, so what do we find out from our customers about that? We find out they like this and this. All right, well, let's sample this product, right? These mushroom drops are a great example. Those came out of listening to our customers say, like, what are you into? What if there's one thing you could buy tomorrow that we don't have on the site, what would it be? Mushrooms were everywhere. And not just the fun kind. Trust me, there's plenty of people that want those. But like a lot of people like mushrooms, the fungal health movement is prolific here in the States. I don't know what it looks like in Canada.
Yeah, no, similar as well here, and definitely in the States too. There's been a real big push into the psychedelic space too.
For sure.
About the fun on the mushrooms, but even into ketamine and ecstasy and so on. So there's so much work that's going on in those spaces and development, and now some regulation is coming along as well. And like you said, there's just this huge lifestyle wrapped around health, alternative health, right? That is all colliding or about to collide. And so it sounds like you're kind of positioning yourself to be in that ecosystem right now, just from the bong and accessory side of things, and now getting into some of the drops and that. But I would imagine the longer term opportunity might be beyond that even, right? It's going to be broader.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Hopkins psilocybin lab is down the street from my house. Literally, it's a few miles from me. I could walk there. I've had a conversation with those guys. I mean, when you peel back their data, no matter how conservative or anti-drug you are, the data that they have is beyond compelling. I mean, you're talking about medically resistant PTSD that has gone through every version of drug known to man.
Yeah.
Their bodies are not reacting well to it. The efficacy is worn off. And in one session, a singular session, all of a sudden they're basically cured or wholly cured.
Well, it's like Michael Pollan there. He did.
Right.
He's got that book, and then it just turned into a Netflix special, right? Where they've 4 episodes or 5 episodes or whatever about all the different psychedelic treatments out there. And that's the thing, right? Yeah, you're right. You pull back some of that and it's just like, holy crap. You can see why the drug companies
are lobbying
on it all.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, if I'm Merck or Pfizer right now, I am lobbying like full court press against this, because the drugs they're coming off of are those drugs, right? Like, and like, bringing it back to what we do right now, because listen, if I could sell psilocybin on the site tomorrow, I definitely would, but obviously that's illegal as well. But like, here's the thing, man, if I go to a dispensary locally, right, and I say, and I do this, this is not me, this is not metaphorical. This is a literal me telling the story, right? I can go to a dispensary and be like, you know what, man, I'm having just creativity issues right now. I need something that's going to kind of wake me up creatively. A good bud tender is going to be like, oh, great, I got a couple ideas. Have you tried this, this, and that? And they'll start bringing you down into like a funnel. And at the end of the day, you get a strain or two maybe, and you go home and you try it out, and it serves its purpose. And zero drugs. Like, I don't have to take a pharmaceutical for that, and I don't even have to take that for that long, right? Like I probably got 15, 20 strains at any given time at my house, because there, some of them I try to love, and just get stuck on a shelf. Other ones I use more often. Other ones I don't, I use very targeted, but like when I'm doing that, it's always targeted, right? Like,
it's designer in the sense that it's so specific now in terms of what you want from it, right? You can get from
it. Yeah. And like, that is not something that I have ever found in any other spot in my life, right? I don't know, unless I take like a prescription drug, right? But I mean, I know in college, I had a prescription for Ritalin for a minute. My body did not react well to that. Like I know plenty of people that have had it with no incidents whatsoever. I was not one of those guys. My tenure with it was very, very short. Like, weeks, not months, it was, and I don't have that problem with cannabis, right? Like I just simply don't have that problem. It's well tolerated. I can titrate it into any dose I want. Like it's a very versatile substance that's got, like you said, a designer output, right? And so
what I'm really curious about, Matt, is because everything is right on the edge of regulation and policy, it's so political. And you've lived through this where, like you said, as soon as you bought it, then there was this great big crackdown and Tommy Chung ends up in jail. And then as you started to, grow the business and now all sorts of different regulations are coming off, but especially in the States right now, like there's a crazy stuff happening from a regulatory standpoint down there from that I'm observing from up here anyway, where it's like, there's a lot of laws and things getting repealed and rights getting changed and so on. So you're always kind of at the whim of the politicians in this industry that you're in, or you're right adjacent to it, I guess. Right. So how do you manage that risk? When you were talking earlier on about the risk tolerance, and that's one of the things you need to know what your risk tolerance is going into it. So I mean, obviously, as you get more comfortable with it, you can navigate it a little bit easier. But I'd imagine there still must be times in which it's like, well, I don't know exactly how far down any one of these roads I should be going, because there's potential, everything could just change on a dime, right?
Sure. You know what? You're right that you said something that hit it right on the head, is when you do it long enough, you sort of develop a sense,
Yeah.
a sixth
feel
sense.
for it.
Yeah. Like when kratom came on, I'm sure you've heard of this word, kratom, right? Or bath salts, like, like what any of these fringe, like Delta 8's the new big one, right?
Okay.
Instantaneously, like, and I mean, like the moment I see it for the very first time, I know almost immediately if it's something that we're going to play with or not. Like I'm not always right, but I'm usually not that far off. Right. And it's not because I'm like Nostradamus or anything. It's because we've seen it so many times that it doesn't take it doesn't take a prophet to figure out that Delta 8's probably going to be fraught with issues. Right. And when you look at there's a lot of tomfoolery in this business, right? Like in the cannabis space, right? So when you look at Delta 8 and you're like, oh, so from a legal standpoint, the compound is defined as the carbon molecule in the ninth atom, like in the ninth position on the chain, right? So do we have Delta 9? That's THC. So we're going to make this molecular configuration illegal, but Delta 8 is basically like a GMO of cannabis, right? Like all they did was move the carbon molecule one space over to 8, and that's not federally illegal. It is, however, the same exact thing. Right now, there's a ton of cannabis people, by the way, freaking out that I just said that. I don't literally mean the same thing, because there are definitely quantitative or qualitative differences between Delta 9 and Delta 8.
Yeah.
We're talking broad strokes here, people. Like, like it will get you high, right? And to the degree it gets you high is where the cannabis people are cringing in their seats right now. But you've got all kinds of molecular tomfoolery going on here, which is basically circumnavigating the laws in a hyper semantical way that at a certain point, the government's just going to come in, and we don't even need the government at this point. Visa and MasterCard in the States anyway have drawn a line in the sand. You cannot sell Delta 8. If you are in violation of Visa and MasterCard. Now, the underwriter of that, whoever you got your merchant account from, might not be enforcing it. And, Visa and MasterCard, they don't have to enforce anything, right? Like that's the benefit of being the king, right? You don't have to actually care about the mud, but it's a laissez-faire situation. Make no mistake about it. It's not because it's legal, right? If you buy Delta 8 online, you're doing so against Visa and MasterCard policy, period, end of story. And so like, I don't want to be in that game. I'm not in the side hustle drug dealer game, right? Like it's not, I have no appetite for it. There's no place for that in our corporate ethos here. Like we're not trying to scam people. We're not trying to be a bottom feeder. We are a long-term participatory group in the industry. Like we want to promote positive change, not perpetuate crappy stereotypes or fringe behavior.
Well, and hence I think strategically your direction in really focusing on the lifestyle part of it allows you to build a sustainable brand that is not reliant upon that or as exposed to the risks of the regulators. And
our products, our products are freely sold in all 50 states.
Yeah.
And that's another decision, right? Like if tomorrow it came out that a certain configuration of a pipe was deemed illegal, like it's just going to come down. We've got 8,000 products on the site. I'm not concerned about one, right? Like, or a family of them, right? I mean, we will just buttress the hole that made with other more productive lines of thought, right? We're not going to, and that's the thing, like, one of our team members was just at a show recently with these Delta 8 guys just throwing money around like crazy because they're just printing cash, like printing money right now. And on the one side, you're like, all right, well, the entrepreneur in me says, well, let's go print money, right? Like, let's do that, right?
Yeah.
But then the pragmatist is like, yeah, but look who I'm drawing in here. I'm drawing in people who basically are just trying to get high in a different way. And I'm like, that's not really why we got into this. I'm not trying to get a bunch of kids high, right? Like it's not what we're here for, right? It's not our highest and best use, right? We want people to buy a product because it's the best taste that you can get out of a cannabis plant, right? Like the ones that I use, for example, the ones that I use that we sell, you can't get a better flavor out of cannabis the money cannot buy a better product to get flavor out of cannabis. So if you like the flavor, you're not going to light a joint or you're not going to core an apple and, with a tinfoil bong. And, it's like, this is not our crowd, and I love those guys. I used to be those guys, but yeah, we've evolved past that. So
yeah. I'm curious, as an entrepreneur of 25 years yourself, where do you go to for inspiration? Whether that's, other entrepreneurs, famous ones, non-famous ones, people that you bump into, whether that's books, whether it's podcasts, where do you go for inspiration and just keep that entrepreneurial drive and energy about you?
Well, not surprisingly, you probably would not be surprised to hear that a good chunk of my friends are also entrepreneurs. So I'm not the only one I know who owns their own company or has owned multiple companies. Most of them have their fingers in 10 things at a time. So I think just culturally, I live in that a lot more than an average person, but I think to be an entrepreneur in general, you got to check off so many boxes that by the time you're done checking those boxes, there's only a limited amount of people you even can hang out with at this point. Right? Like it's, how many times that my wife has to hear me going through like a fundraising round or like this or that, or, another, a buddy's IPOing over here or something. I mean, it's a recursive story and it's fun, but it's not for everyone. Right. So you gotta, but I'm very into, I'm one of these like OCD research guys. When I get into something, I'm neck deep in it within 5 minutes. And I ride that wave until I've extracted the right amount of information. And then I kind of like start to synthesize that information. Right. So I get a lot of inspiration from basically looking around and trying to connect dots on a really, really horizontal plane, right? Like, so Headshop is a great manifestation of that, like this wellness thing, right? Like drawing a line between cannabis and psilocybin is an easy feat. Drawing a line between cannabis accessories and a at-home cold thermogenesis dip tank is less of a straight line. But as it turns out, lots of people that shop with us,
the audience is there,
want to own that, right? And so when you look at that, it takes a really wide thinker to be able to do that. And that is not a skill that you're born with, right? Like that is a skill that you have to curate and nurture and water and feed. And, you got to keep that going. And so every time I see a new thing pop up, Delta 8's a great example. Like there's a synthesis process that I go through that says, one, I'm a marketer. I can't get away from that. So first thing is, can I market this thing? Is this a marketable concept? Yes or no? And if it answers yes, like, am I going to go to jail for it? Unfortunately, I have to ask that question in Headshop world. And like, if I sell bath salts, I'm going to jail. No question about it. So at no point in my history did it ever occur to me to sell bath salts. Like not one time. I see these people getting busted for that. I'm like, what an idiot. Like what, I mean, how did you not, on what planet did this seem like a good idea to you? Like, this is a wildly uncalculated risk. Right. And like, once you start doing that, then you're like, all right, well, who's the foremost expert on home thermogenesis tanks? And you find that person and you read all the studies on it. And you're like, all right, is this something that is going to benefit people? Cause like once you get down the layers, you've cleared off all the extraneous stuff. You eventually get to the point where you're like, is this product going to be helpful for people? Because at the end of the day, you can sell a bunch of Delta 8 and flash in the pan it all you want. We've seen this happen a million times. But that's not helping anybody. I don't think that I have not seen, and nor do I think it would be reasonable to think that a medically required a person who requires medical cannabis is probably not going to come back and be like, God, you know what really got me over the hump of cancer? Delta 8. Like that is not going to be likely a narrative that you're going to hear. Right. And so I want to be associated with products that help people in a meaningful way, not just because I can make money on it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It has to check that box for you. And I love what you were talking about though, just in terms of like that nonlinear connections that you try to make out there, because this is one of the things that I think is a big takeaway that our audience needs to really sit with for a minute, because there's so many things that we do within our businesses that have a lot of value if we just look just beyond our own horizon, right? Beyond what we can see right now. And so, like, as you're saying what you're saying, it's like, okay, well, you could get into potentially, selling things that are related to those tanks, or you have a database of customers that are hugely valuable for a company who is wanting to sell those tanks, right? And so it's about the partnerships that can be there, and the co-branding or co-marketing, cross-marketing of different things. And so there's just so many opportunities that just come out of that community that you built, which now, as you're doubling down on the lifestyle side of things, is probably going to become even more and more valuable as you continue on, which I think is just absolutely brilliant, Matt.
Well, I think that's encouraging. And I also hope that comes true. But yeah, I mean, look at, when it comes to the horizontality, I know that's not a word, but of the world, most people just wake up, they go to work, they do what they think they should do, and then they come home. And when they're at home, they also do what they think they should do, right? Like I have 2 kids, right? So like I have to put them on a soccer team. I have to put them in a swim team. I have to do this. I have to do that. But it's very rare that you get somebody that says, okay, well, what if, we have this whole research project going on about biases right now. And so like, I'm kind of neck deep into the biases that we as humans are saddled with. But the one thing that I keep seeing on repeat is that professionals, specifically people who label themselves as experts, are some of the least horizontal thinking humans that exist. Because once you get into the domain of expertise, it's not until you cross the chasm into wisdom that you could even see that there's a horizon to look at, right? And I don't want to sound too esoteric here, but like basically an expert is basically somebody who knows a lot of shit about one thing, right? And that's great. Like if I want to have a brain tumor removed, I want the expert neurosurgeon, right? Like clearly.
Totally. Yep.
But what happens in a world where the world's best neurosurgeon got their best tricks from a Tibetan monk from some practice they had nothing to do with neurosurgery, right? Like there's so many things that could be, I mean, you've heard this we've heard this, all heard this before, the miracle cancer drug that was found in the rainforest on some tulip that no one ever heard of before, right? That is a metaphor for just thinking in general, right? Like, I mean, your Amazonian tulip to cure your cancer is out there. It could be sitting right next to you. You really need to know how to and be motivated to go root that out and figure it out, right? Because once you find it, then you've got to have the wherewithal to know what the hell to do with it, right? Like you could have this thing, but like, the dip tank, it's great. Like there is nothing less connected on the surface than dipping your body into cold water and getting out. Like there's like literally it has nothing to do with cannabis whatsoever. So if you know that that's a product that you're going to put on your site because people want it, how do you connect the dots for them? Yeah. How do you make them understand why they want this, and how is it going to complement their lives in a way that other people that we got the idea from are doing it? So it's like this whole circular thought process that keeps jumping off into separate directions. Completely. And then I guess the last part of that is you got to have the discipline to bring it back to that center point and say, okay, the objective here is to do right by the most amount of people and put these cool products into their hands. Right.
Yeah.
So
and then also
draw that back.
Yeah. And then also at the same time as the entrepreneur, right, to really be able to be focused enough and not be chasing all of these different things that are just going to completely distract you and your team, right? It's about being methodical about it too, or systematic about it, and at the same time. So you still have to have it's interesting, right? Because it's both sides of the brain really need to be working in tandem here, because you need the creative side that's willing to explore and to imagine and to try to figure out all those connections, and then you need the much more practical, methodical side of the brain to really execute on a lot of that sometimes. Yeah. Matt,
sure.
we're unfortunately we're out of time here.
Please. Yeah.
It's
great.
It's been just such a great chat. I mean, we could go on and on forever. And I know you warned me about that at the beginning.
I did. I gave you fair warning. I said, you're going to have to tell me to stop. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. But there's just so much there. Right. And this is the thing, when you're talking to a guy who's been doing this for 25 years and is exploring all these different ways and evolving the business, right? There's just a lot of ways to look at things and a lot of wisdom to share. So thank you so much, Matt, for sharing yours today.
The pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
If anybody wanted to connect with you or check out Headshop, what's the best way to do it? I mean,
headshop.com.
Obviously.
Yeah, is right? It? Yeah. I have like the world's best email address, matt@headshop.com. It's just super easy. It's like the world's simplest email address. So yeah, I mean, we are always looking for interesting joint ventures with people. If there are lifestyle brands out there, or if there's events out there, or any kind of unique experience that you want to kind of throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks, we love those conversations. So I'd love to have that conversation with anybody, really.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Matt. And for those of you who enjoyed this episode, you can check out the archives over at amplifyyourbusiness.ca. And of course, you can find us on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, I should say, by just Googling or searching within them, Amplify Your Business. And so thank you again, Matt. Really appreciate you taking the time today. And everybody else who's listening, I hope you have a prosperous day, and we'll catch you in the next episode.